Kristina, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
This is so fun doing this in person at TrailCon. Actually, I guess we're not in TrailCon anymore.
It's like the eve of States.
Right.
States Eve.
So it's like the intermediary gray space between TrailCon. It's not Broken Arrow anymore, which we could talk about because you did compete in Broken Arrow. Did very well. And then Western States is happening this weekend. So we're in this like sort of fun gray white space between those two. Okay, where do you want to start? We'll just start with an introduction. Let's do that. I would love to have you introduce yourself to the audience, and you can take that in any way you want to today, however that feels to you.
Hello, my name is Kristina Randrup. I'm a professional trail runner, and I'm also a PhD student at the University of Washington. I've been competing in ultras since I was 18. I have my bachelor's degree from the University of Washington as well in environmental science, and I also focused in wildlife conservation. And then I have a master's from the University of Wisconsin. I've never actually been to Wisconsin. It was a remote program.
Interesting. Was it during COVID?
It was actually a program that was designed to be remote for people who were like working as well.
Yeah.
So, and then it like lined up with COVID and worked out really well.
This is perfect.
I applied before COVID hit.
Oh.
But that's a master's in GIS and spatial analysis.
Okay.
And then I started my PhD in the fall of 2023, working under Dr. Trevor Branch in the School of Aquatic and Fishery Sciences at UW. Kind of a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. All of your degrees, I feel like, are a mouthful in a good way. That's very badass.
Definitely.
And you're also a professional ultrarunner.
Yes.
Trail runner. But I feel like most people in this community will probably know you from that, like from your trail running. Yeah. Before we get into me asking you questions about your life and digging into all those things you just said, I do ask this question to every guest that comes on the podcast, which is, what was your aha moment on climate or environment? And in your case, it sounds like you've been really interested in environmentalism and ecology for a long time. So I'm really curious to ask you that question.
Yeah, I don't know if I really had one specific aha moment. When I've always been a really outdoorsy person. I used to go hiking with my dad, like biking, used to backpack all the time in high school. And I think sometime in middle school, I had the pipe dream of like, I'm going to fix climate change. I don't know exactly where that came from. That's not something that one person can do.
Did you know about climate change in middle school?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is like such an interesting generational thing because I feel like I didn't like know about it till, well, it was also called global warming for so long.
Yeah, I'm going to stop global warming.
Sure.
Yeah, it's climate change.
Yeah.
So I've always loved the outdoors, being outside, being in the mountains, and my parents are both physicists, and their whole thing was kind of like, as long as you do science, like we don't care what you do.
But they said like,
they're like, you should be a scientist.
a little helpful nudge in an industry or in a sector.
Believe it or not, when I was like in kindergarten for second grade, I was like, I want to be an artist. They're like, no.
Just nope.
So no. But then I learned about global warming. I learned now climate change. We think about all the impacts, not just the warming. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what, but I was like, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to stop global warming. But so pretty early on, I knew I wanted to study environmental science in college. So that definitely like guided where I went to undergrad. And I came in knowing what major I wanted to do. And like, I think wildlife is really cool. So it wasn't just a specific, wow, like climate change is a big thing. I feel like we've been inundated with it for a long time, that it just kind of becomes something that you think about in the back of your mind a lot, especially when you are someone who is more in tune with the outdoors and maybe noticing some of those impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, you really spoken to the thesis and theory of change of this entire podcast is like, the people that like to recreate outside and in nature probably want to also protect it. Like there's probably an overlap there. I have to ask, did you ever did you watch Inconvenient Truth, or like, was there like, do you remember anything in middle school where you were like, like this is why I want to go do this? Or it was just kind of like, I'm just going to study science.
I don't think I watched a lot of documentaries.
I love that your parents were like, art, no.
Yeah. And like even when I was like environmental science, they're like, that's not like hard science. And I was like, but I like the numbers part, like, because they're like physicists. Physics is like hard science versus like soft science.
Interesting.
Like, drama in the
I totally get it. Yeah.
But that's just what I was like interested in. Yeah. So yeah.
That's great. I mean, it's funny too, thinking about like, okay, so there's hard science and then there's soft science. And then there's the people, those of us not in science are like, you're like, what does that even qualify as? Like, we're even softer. I'm like, media and storytelling. It's but I think we need us all, you know, I think we need everybody.
Like ways to bridge the gaps. Yeah. And there's a paper I read in a class last year, I think, where it wasn't a scientific paper, but it was about like, what kind of scientist are you going to be? I forget the exact terms for each of them, but it's like, are you going to be a pure scientist where it's just, here's the results, that's my job? Or are you going to be an advocate? Are you going to be a communicator? Like, what role? Oh, wow. And you have to, I think it's something as a scientist you should think about of, do you want to be actively involved in management and rules and control rules, or do you want to just present the science? Because there is implications of what things mean, and if you find something that you think like will change a rule in a worse way, like you still have to present it because it's what you found, but you also have to present like your expert knowledge and say like, hey, this is what we found, but I don't actually think that's what like we should change or what we should do.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
So there are like, even within science, like different roles of how you interact with the public and managers. And
yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know if I always reference her on this podcast, but Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who's like very famous in the climate world, said something around, she's a PhD in marine science, and I don't know her actual PhD topic, but she went to Scripps down in we're in California, Southern California. She said something that was really interesting, where apparently she like had a conversation with her mentor or advisor at one point in her PhD program, and they were like talking about what she wanted to do with the degree. And she was kind of like, we both came to the conclusion that like, I wanted to do enough, or I wanted to know enough to be dangerous. Like sort of like get the facts, get the science, but then she wanted to be a communicator. She wanted to be like, not necessarily a policymaker, but wanted to bridge the gap between policy and science, and the science community and the policy community and kind of the general public, therefore, after that. So I just thought that was really cool how, I do not have a PhD, and I don't know if I'll pursue one, but at this point in my life, it doesn't look like it. But like having that goal in mind, where you're like, maybe some people go into a PhD program, which we'll get to for you, but like some people go into that program being like, this is what I want out of this. Like, I want this job at the end of the day, or I want to do this with my life. And I think it was interesting that she was kind of like, she had that communication bent in her mind. And then she just wrote a book, and she's, done TED Talks, and like, she certainly went in that communications direction. So I just thought that was pretty interesting to like learn about the different roles, to your point, of like the science community when you go study that. Now I'm going to ask you specifically about your environmental background and course of study, not yet about the PhD. Sure. But so you had these maybe many moments of like aha, or like realization moments in middle school. I'm going to go solve climate change. I'm going to go solve global warming. You alone. I love that. Yes. I love the confidence there. Like, just to, that.
Yes. Like, one person can fix it, right?
Totally.
It's not the oil companies.
Yeah. No. One person. I mean, if we all had that, honestly, it kind of would be a cool, like, maybe we could mobilize more people. Okay. So you just listed off all these various degrees, but if you can like dive in a little bit more to like the environmental science background, maybe more general for bachelor's, and then the GIS component of your master's degree is super interesting too. Talk more about like your studies before PhD.
Yeah. So I entered UW knowing I would be in the forestry school. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, forestry schools in the country. So working with experts. And I knew within the environmental science degree, I wanted to focus on wildlife conservation. And along with that, I also got a minor in math and a second minor in quantitative science. Quantitative science is basically just statistics for environmental science.
Sure, okay.
And then math, I just really like calculus, so I wanted to do more calculus.
Yeah, as one does. No, I'm kidding. That's awesome.
I don't know. I love calculus.
That's awesome.
And for my thesis, or undergrad thesis, I worked with a grad student who had camera trapping grids, one in the Okanagan Wenatchee Forest and one in the northeast of Washington. And she was studying the reintroduction of wolves to Washington. Wow. And it was a big, like huge study with many different stakeholders. But she had noticed that there are a lot of black bear detections in those. And she was like, well, I'm not doing anything with that. So I used the black bear detections to do an occupancy model for the two forests and look at different habitat covariates to see if there's anything like more influencing the occupancy of the black bears within those areas. I didn't have all the data processed at the time because there were a lot of cameras and millions of photos to go through. But what I did find was like, and this is unpublished, but like it was still a fun like project to do. We did find statistical significantly
statistically how do you want to say that? Statistically
significant differences in occupancy. It's a mouthful. Between the two areas. So it is like it does point out the need for like site specific management
of bears in this case,
but more broadly you can generalize like like management in one location doesn't necessarily work everywhere else. Because people or species are different and they behave differently in different areas.
Totally.
So that was my undergrad. Thesis.
That's like very complex. I mean, like I don't know. It sounds really complex to me.
And within that major, like a lot of my classes had field trips. I did a wildlife research techniques class, and we did two field trips. We did one weekend out on the Olympic Peninsula. We stayed at the Olympic Natural Resource Center and did like line transect surveys counting salamanders, did like some bird surveys, seeing what birds we could hear. And then we did a second one out to the Moses Lakes area and did small mammal marker capture with the rodents, which was really cool. And I did like a Pacific Northwest forest ecology class, and we did like one really big day where you go from Snoqualmie Pass out to Cle Elum, like look at the burn area, the regeneration. You're like giving facts about all the trees and the plants and the wildlife in the area, and just learning so much about like the place you live. I still like sometimes on runs I just like spout off the names of the trees and the plants that I see, and I love knowing the plants in my area. Even though I'm focused on wildlife, I just think plants are really cool, and being able to just identify the things in your area, I think it's a fun skill that I think a lot of people should pursue because it's just really exciting and it's not hard to learn them, and it just gets you like more in touch with where you are.
Totally. Yeah.
So that was undergrad. Okay. And then when I graduated undergrad, I worked for the Nature Conservancy for 9 months.
Okay, cool.
And that was probably the bulk of the actual like climate work I've done, or pretty much the only climate work I've done. But climate change is like in ecology, it's always in the background. Yeah. But I did a project on natural climate solutions in Washington. So I was a GIS intern for them and led the analysis on that work for them. And then honestly, I just like couldn't get a job after that. So I started working I started working at Whole Foods, and then I applied for some master's programs, got into Wisconsin, and I didn't have a specific thesis with that work. It was like course based. But I learned a lot more GIS skills and learned Python, as well as I already knew R from undergrad. And learned like HTML and CSS
and this was
super fun things.
Super fun. And this was remote, like by plan. Like this was already planned to be remote, and then
so
COVID
like set
hit
up
kind of right on. Yeah, interesting.
So I also like worked full time at Whole Foods like while I did that.
Wow.
But it was like coursework based, and as long as you just like did the quizzes and turned in the assignments, like you got it done.
Yeah.
So I don't have any like exciting work coming out of that, but I learned a lot, and it was. Like when I did that GIS internship, that I really enjoyed doing GIS and the broad applications of it and knowing different GIS systems. I mostly use Esri, but there's other like technologies out there. And I think it's just something that you can like apply to a lot of different fields. And then I still couldn't get a job after that. And then I went to the PhD.
You're like, all right, keeping it going with graduate school. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I think it's also really interesting to hear about your thoughts and feelings around like possible connections to nature when you do know like the names and the like, you know, the plant names, animal names, or even facts about the region. Like, obviously, it's really cool to hear. I just moved to Seattle, as you know, but I've spent a lot of time there beforehand. Woo! And it's so cool, though, to hear like the localized, like just your knowledge and your ability to like run these trails. Maybe you're with friends and you say these fun facts, but you have these classes you've taken, you've like spent time in these different regions. You're able to be, you know, you're able to sort of provide these facts for folks. And I do think, I agree with you. Like, I think it really engenders this connection with nature that's maybe a little bit deeper, even if that doesn't go anywhere. Even if it's just like, oh, I was running with Kristina one time and she told me this plant is called this. It's like, that's a cool connection point. It's not, you know, maybe it's not going to like change someone's career path to like go work in climate or environment, but I don't know. I think it's really cool.
One thing I've heard a lot, I'm not going to go into details of this because I will butcher it, but the like history between the Camas route in Washington and the tribes and how entwined their relationship is. Mm-hmm. There was, it was 50 years since the Bolt decision, which was a landmark decision in fisheries that gave tribes 50% rights to. So it was a huge decision. This was 50 years since that decision. Yeah. So we had a series of talks at UW for the day in my department, and one of the panelists kind of like was talking about the Camas route and how the tribes are so connected to the route and to the place and the fish, and it's all like historically very connected to the land, and like colonists come in and like disrupt that entirely. And specifically with the Camas route, that's a story I've heard time and time again because it is something so integral and so local to the Pacific Northwest and specifically like the Skagit area, that it's a really beautiful story to hear and be reminded of, like how important feeling connected to a specific plant is, or a specific area, to the ground and to your identity.
Totally. We can link to a lot of that too, because I do show notes and everything, so we can definitely find out more information about that, because I think I would love to read more about that, and I know like a lot of listeners I bet would like to do that too.
If I butchered anything, I'm so sorry. I'm going off of memory.
No, this is, I mean, totally. And like, I think it's just awesome that, honestly, it's like, thank you for bringing that up, because I think there's a lot of times, like there are a lot of conversations that I have here on this podcast that I always like finish the conversation and then I'm like, and I did not talk about like tribal access or like indigenous sovereignty and traditional ecological knowledge and all these pieces that really tie into land stewardship. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think especially in Washington, and I'm learning this as I move there, live there now, like realizing I think every state and arguably like different parts of the country have very different relationships with tribal nations, and very interesting to see how Washington has been. And I know it's not perfect. I know it's like a lot of different, the history, we don't have time, obviously, nor do I have the knowledge yet to get into this, but I do want to acknowledge, like, I think that, you know, it's amazing that you're bringing this up, because I think it's a huge part of like, especially localized Washington area ecology.
Like most names in Washington are Native American names, tribal names that have stuck, and I think that's really cool. And one thing coming from California that really struck me when I first moved to Washington for undergrad is land acknowledgements happen at the beginning of everything. And I love that because I think it's really important to acknowledge whose stolen land we're on and to understand that history. And I think traditional ecological knowledge and seeing that being more actively implemented in Western science is really cool. And there have been studies lining up, like, again, I'll probably butcher the details on this paper, but I can send you the paper.
For sure.
Someone in my department, she works with polar bears in Greenland. She did a study interviewing the people in the area and like multiple generations, asking them how their behavior had changed, how the population had changed, and then also used Western techniques with like radio collaring and abundance estimation and fully lined up what people
wow.
like experienced and thought was happening with what the science said.
Wow.
So like there's definitely grounds for traditional ecological knowledge to be like formally implemented in Western science.
Absolutely. I mean, on a different podcast that I have, this was a couple of years ago, we interviewed Dr. Lydia Jennings, who's an amazing Indigenous, I think she's an amazing Indigenous woman and scientist, and I think I'm going to get this statistic wrong, but I think like of PhD holders, like 0.2% of them are Indigenous or something to that effect. Like she is one of the only PhD holders that is Indigenous. She also, or PhD doctors, she is focuses specifically on soil science and land really sovereignty, cool. Right? And the kind of the intermix of like, mining and land reclamation and all of this. Yeah. And so she actually has a shout out. She has a film with Patagonia called, I'm going to find the link because Jordan Marie Daniel just brought it up on the panel yesterday, but there was an amazing film with her where she's running and collecting soil samples. So she'll stop and collect them and then she'll put them in her pack. And she it was very cool. She also did another 50-mile run for recognizing different relatives and Indigenous scientists that have come before us. The reason I'm talking about this is because she spoke to the fact that there's a lot of, we spoke about the interesting dynamic between, there's sort of this Western science says this. She's like, yes, so I have to bring in Western science sometimes to my Indigenous studies or studies of Indigenous sovereignty to prove out the fact that traditional ecological knowledge and sovereign, nations, tribal nations having sovereignty and having stewardship abilities over these lands is far and away the best stewardship mechanism of the lands. But it's you have to prove it out with Western science for people to take it seriously. And I'm putting air quotes around all this, but I think your example really helps to illustrate that as well. And it was interesting hearing that from an Indigenous scientist herself being I hate to do this, but it's and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she's I don't love that this has to happen, but I sometimes have to validate or whatever our findings as Indigenous communities or our abilities as Indigenous communities using Western science. So it's just such an interesting, but then to your point, she would apply that and it would be clear, this is the best method, this is the best way, is tribal stewardship. So yeah, it's fascinating. And yeah, you said it, a lot of amazing locations in Washington use tribal names. And I know there's a long history there. This could be an entire other episode of but I'm so happy you brought this up.
I'm not the person to do that.
But and you know what? I think though, I'm always a fan of shining a light, passing a mic, being able to use these platforms to point in the direction of those stories. So we will absolutely do that. We'll link to all these papers and everything you just brought up. And yeah, I mean, we could link to various ways we could link to the entire tribal history of the lands that Washington now occupies. But I think I agree with you, moving there already. Moving to Washington, I've seen this land acknowledgement, this real in the bones of the folks that live there. There's a real dialogue happening, it feels. And I think that's really unique and possibly different from California, possibly different from honestly other places that I've lived. I'm from Maine, and we do a lot of work and acknowledgement of the Wabanaki communities there, but I think it does differ by where you are in the US.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Okay, so on the note, I'm going to shift a little bit because then we'll shift back. I like to do these zigzags. Yeah. So you're a professional trail runner, casual. You just won a race here?
I won the 18K at Broken Arrow, which is not the star of the show.
Okay, wait. The reason I said it like that was because I was am I up to date on my knowledge? You won a race here. Let's put a period and an exclamation on that.
I got an arrow.
You got a really cool trophy. You won the 18K. I love that. It's a race here, period. I don't care if it's not the star of the show. It's a freaking race. I swear on this show sometimes, who knows? Congratulations on that. There are also many other wonderful accomplishments that you have had in the trail space. And I was just curious, as I started to research you a little bit more, because we're friends, and yet when I dive into friends' backgrounds, I find so much cool stuff. So you started trail running. Well, you can tell the story, but you started at a very young age.
Yeah.
And maybe was involved, maybe it was related to family being in the sport.
So kind of a mix of things. I'll probably interweave and try to go back and forward in time. I started running like on my own in freshman, sophomore year of high school, just like would go out for a few miles. And I grew up in Berkeley in the East Bay, and the East Bay has some of the best, I think it's one of the best trails, like interconnected trail systems in the world.
Yes.
Just how you can stay so connected, like through the parks all around the entire bay. Like you can do a circle stay on trails.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started running, it was just trails are right there. That's just what I ran on. So it was never like trail running was not like a different thing for me. It was just running.
Huh.
And then I joined cross country junior year of high school. I primarily joined the team because I didn't really have many friends. And I was like, I know a girl on the cross country team and that will be better friends. And we're still best friends. So it worked.
Wow.
I joined cross country and track junior and senior year. Made it to state cross country senior year, which was really exciting.
In California.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
We were D5, so like it was less competitive, but I was the first person to go to state from our school, I think since Clara Peterson in 1996.
Wow.
And now Clara Peterson, I don't know if you know the name, but she's like black shirted Dipsy a million times.
I should
so
probably
she's
know
super
the name,
fast.
But yeah, she sounds very accomplished.
So that was my like first dabble into like competitive running. But sophomore year of high school, my mom signed me up for 2 trail 10Ks. And I think I finished 3rd in both of them. And I remember coming to school like the day after one of the races, and the cross country team was like, Kristina, did you run a 10K this weekend? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, why aren't you on our team? And I was like, yeah, but this was like up really big hills and stuff. Like, it's not fast.
They're like, yeah, exactly. Wait, so how old were you at this point?
13.
What?
Maybe 14.
Oh my gosh. So young.
And then senior year, one weekend, I swapped out my what was supposed to be like long run of like 8 miles. Which was a long run at the time. It's
a long run for some people, myself included right now.
My parents were doing a 10 miler up in Calistoga, and they signed me up for the 10K, and I won it outright.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember my cross country coach because I told her what I'd done that weekend, and she was like, you were supposed to run at like 7:15 pace. What is this like 8:30 pace? And I was like, but I won the race. Like I beat all the guys.
My goodness.
She's like, that's too slow. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Cool.
Not what my reaction would have been, but I respect the coach. Great. Okay.
So that was high school. Leaving high school, I knew I wanted to keep running because I really enjoyed it. That's how I made my friends. I liked being on trails. But I also had only been running competitively for 2 years at that point, so I wasn't that fast. Mm-hmm. And when I was deciding where to go to college, UW was the only place where I didn't have like a guaranteed spot on the team because UW's really good. But I knew something about UW just felt right, so I knew I wanted to go there. And I knew I would just keep running on my own. So then after my first year in undergrad, I was home for the summer. Maybe like sometime early July, my mom was like, hey, I do this 50K every year. You should run it. And I was like, that's dumb. Like, I'm young. I want to get faster. Like, sign me up. Sure, why not do something dumb?
Your mom sounds like a badass, by the way.
So that's what I'm getting to next.
Okay.
For me, I know, like, the step up to an ultra can be a really intimidating thing for a lot of people. But for me, it was something my mom did, like, pretty frequently when I was growing up. Like, the idea of doing an ultra, I was like, that's like, mom does it, I can do it. Yeah. Like, it's not crazy. It's just, I was exposed to it, so it was never, like, an intimidating concept.
Yeah, totally.
And then the 50K went really well. So then I didn't do another trail race until that race again a year later because I didn't have a car in Washington, but I did it again a year later. Still went well. And I had done like some road racing. I finally did my first road marathon after my ultra.
Yeah.
I remember I got to that first 50K. I was like Snapchatting my friends running. I still ran like a 4:30 on a course I ran 4:29 because I wanted to break 4:30 on a course with like 5,500 feet of climbing. Like, I was just like on my phone. I didn't eat.
Selfies.
I didn't eat.
Oh my gosh. Oh, to be young.
I just kind of did it and went well.
Nice.
And then I did like some road races of what I could get to like via bus from campus.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then did that race again the next year. And then I remember at Christmas after my second 50K, so must have been Christmas 2018, I was like, I want to run a 50 miler next year. And then my mom was like, okay, like you need help.
Yeah. Okay, this is beyond my capacity.
So I still trained myself. But then that next year I ran Formidable 50K, which was the US champs at the time. I did Chuckanut. Chrissy, well, she's wonderful. I emailed her like 2 weeks before Chuckanut. I was like, can I do this? She was like, there's a wait list. I was like, okay, I signed up. She's like, actually, I took you off the wait list.
Oh,
so I really,
nice.
she's a wonderful person. And then I ran American River 50 miler, my first 50 miler, second to Emily Hoggood, who has like, skyrocketed. She's
obviously
a superstar.
Yeah.
I love her.
Wow.
So watching her continue to just like kill everything is really awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then I just kind of kept the ball rolling, and just run. And I've done a couple 100Ks. I dabble in sub ultra. I like to joke after every sub ultra that I'm retiring from it. Cross the line at the
including this one that you just ran.
I crossed the line at the Gorge 30K this year because I did the 30K and the 50K, and I crossed the line. I just remember I looked at Ryan and was like, I'm retiring from sub ultra. That was too fast.
It's really fast. You guys go so fast on those.
And here I am now. Yeah.
Doing more sub ultra at this last weekend. Yeah,
1/6 of my last race in terms of distance.
Oh my gosh.
I did Miwok and then my last race. Well, I guess I did Dipsy and I did Ski to Sea, but I'm not really counting those because I did Dipsy after a wedding, and Ski to Sea I just do with like some friends from college.
Nice.
So that was like,
it's nice to have a variety of
But my last actual race was 100K.
Wow. And then you came here to do that. And you're a member of the Brooks Trail team, which was recent, right?
Yeah, I signed in January.
Amazing. Congratulations.
End of the year.
Whatever. Yeah. Something in the winter.
Yeah.
Around then. I feel like I saw those awesome team photos.
Announced at the end of January, but you sign at the end of this school year.
Negotiate for
calendar
year. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. I guess that is kind of what everyone signs. So cool. That's awesome. And I feel like it's amazing to have this parallel path of your career and your environmental work, and then also just be a casual crusher, just winning stuff, coming on podiums all over the place. Okay, so again, zigzagging back, you are in a PhD program now. And I have heard snippets of what you study, but I'm always what? It's so cool. So even just before we were stopped by Adam Mary and a couple other folks, but we were chatting about what are we going to go talk about on this podcast? And we were blue whales, what is let's get into it. So, yes, I mean, wherever you want to take this, I know there are pieces we maybe won't discuss because there are some parts of the research that might not be released yet, but tell me about your program. Tell me what you're studying, how, and maybe even also how did you go this route? How did you get into this? Because it's quite specific.
Yeah, I think I'll start with that.
Yeah.
Where what you were talking about earlier of some knowing exactly what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever quite been that way. I've had vague ideas of I liked GIS, I should pursue that. I like ecology, I like the GIS, I like this, but I'm having trouble finding a job and where to go. And then, so PhD has never been my goal, but then the opportunity arose. I originally reached out to someone at UC Santa Cruz who was looking at ecosystem dynamics of pinnipeds in Santa Cruz, I believe.
Can I ask?
Pinnipeds are seals and sea lions.
I'm going to probably ask you a lot of questions that are pretty dumb throughout this. Okay. Seals and sea lions.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
And so I talked to her, and then she was like, you should also, you should talk to other people. I was like, yeah, but I really like you. She's like, you should, that's not how you get into a PhD program.
Sure.
So she sent me over a list of other folks because she only had funding for one person. It was like, I'm talking, like, I have a lot of people talking to me, but just like, I want you to succeed as well. And one of the people on the list was Trevor Branch, who is my current advisor. And I saw that name, and I'd taken a couple classes with him as an undergrad. And I was like, it kind of was this like click of, yeah, like, I really like the kind of work he does because it's very quantitative. And he's a fantastic teacher, like, wonderful person. Wow. So I emailed him and I was like, I really want to learn from you. Like, are you looking for students? And he happened to be. He didn't respond to my email until like the day the application closed. So then I responded and I was like, okay, so the application is closed.
Oh, wait, so it was already closed.
And then he was like, tell them I told them that they should reopen it for you. So then I like scrambled to put like my application together in 2 days, and I like letters of recs. It's like put it together. I'm sure it was the worst essays I've ever written. But then I was invited to campus to like be in person, have an actual like interview.
Yeah.
And originally I was talking to him about some herring work that he's a part of, but he was talking to somebody else at the time about that as well. And I remember we were both visiting, and he like pulled me into his office. He's like, Kristina, are you really attached to herring? And I was like, no, I really just want to learn from you. He's like, wow. Would you maybe like want to do blue whales? I was like, can I be honest? I don't give a shit about herring. Like, blue whales are so much cooler. Are you kidding?
Yeah, duh. I
was like, I honestly, like, I'll do anything to work with you. Like, whatever. Wow. If it's like bottom trawl surveys, whatever. I just want to learn from you. And it worked. And so within like basically a 5-week period of sending in my application and like getting an offer. So it all happened really quickly. And I just went with it and was like, yes, I'm going to do this.
Blue whales,
let's go.
Did you know anything else besides, like, was there any other direction besides like the blue whale topic?
He was like, I have some like we can come up with some research questions.
Okay.
But that we kind of came up with more like once I actually started.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I'm gonna study blue whales. I'm knowing nothing about like whales or marine ecology.
But you had like such a cool wildlife. I feel like you had like more exposure to biodiversity and like wildlife corridors, and
the ecological like theory absolutely translates to marine wildlife. And I say marine wildlife because when we say wildlife or marine mammals, when we say wildlife, we're really talking about terrestrial animals.
Oh, okay.
But when we talk about like things in the water, it's like it's not usually included in like wildlife.
Interesting. I didn't
when you
know
talk
that.
about like wildlife science, it's not like
I guess that makes sense from what
separate.
I've heard.
But a lot of the theory like translates between the two. So I like did a lot of like I'm still learning a lot about just the background of like whaling and the International Whaling Commission that I partially work with, I guess, and just ecology and marine mammal like evolutionary history and driving factors of traits and everything. And I'll be quizzed on all of that, tested pretty hard on all of that in the fall when I take my qualifying exam. So studying a lot, but I've learned so much, and marine mammals are really cool.
They seem so cool.
Yeah. Blue whales are really big.
Huge. Okay, so have you seen, like,
I have.
Have you seen any? Yeah.
Yeah, so last year I got to go on 2 really cool trips. One of them was to Perth for the Society of Marine Mammalogy conference. And we went a few days early to go down to Geograph Bay, and they have a citizen science, like one of the beaches. They have it's not really a beach, it's rocky, but they have an outlook where volunteers count the whales passing by during migration season. So coming through there are blue whales, humpbacks, and southern right whales. Wow. And we went, and we weren't on the right timing to see southern right whales, but we saw humpbacks and blue whales. The day before we were at the beach, they saw 30. The day after, they saw 40. We saw like 2 or 3. But we saw some.
You saw some.
They're huge. You don't see much. You just see their back. You see their blow, and then their back just like slowly coming out.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting seeing blue whales like next to humpbacks.
Yeah.
Because blue whales feel ancient. Like they're so big. They just like are moving through unbothered, just like minding their business. They just like feel old. And then the humpbacks, one of them had a calf, and they're just like splashing around like children, like interacting with the whaling boat, like, or whale watching boat, having a blast, like being chaotic. And the blue whales are just like, oh my god, like these guys just swimming past, and the humpbacks are like putting on a show. So it's really interesting, the like different personalities almost of the different species.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And yeah, I feel like I don't actually know this. I'm completely gonna like make something up here, but aren't blue whales like fins even sort of just like, isn't it like not super pronounced?
Yeah, their dorsal fin is very like it's pretty small, and it's really far down their back.
Yeah, okay. And like I feel like that would be a different experience than seeing maybe like a humpback's like their fin
arms
or their arm kind of flat.
It's like a fin, but it acts almost more like an arm because they use it for defense as well.
They do. Yeah. Wow, interesting. That's so funny that they were like splashing around and like being like hamming it up for the boat. Okay. So you basically like went into this program and you were like, I'm gonna study this course of study because I really want to. I love that though, like where you want to. I mean, like I'm finding that in honestly in life, like in our community, even or in jobs, in career, like I find that I'm more gravitate towards like working for a person or like working with a person that I jive with or want to learn from versus anything around like, yeah, topic area, of course, is important. But like, if you find someone that you want to be, you know, really in their orbit, I think that's a huge benefit. Yeah. And it's like you do everything you can to be in that orbit.
Yeah. And I don't know if I will like stay in the marine mammal world, but I know like everything I'm doing, because the research I'm doing is very quantitatively driven, that I can do that with terrestrial wildlife. And if I want to come back to the marine mammal world after that, like I'll have the expertise here to do that. And it is also, the marine mammal world is what I learned is a hard one to get into because everyone wants to work with like seals, sea lions, whales, orcas. It's all the charismatic megafauna that gets all the attention that so many people like want to work it with marine mammals that it's hard to break into it. And I feel really lucky that I've been given the opportunity to be in this world and learn from so many amazing people. Even though that was never my intention almost, but I want to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And like, I also recognize like that is a really cool opportunity that I didn't know was like not an easy one.
Yeah. To get into. Yeah. And here you are like in the middle of it. You did mention you're doing really quantitative work. Can you give like a little bit of an idea of what you're doing or?
Yeah. So like some of the, one thing that I'll be working on is, and that so backing up a little bit, most whale populations were very depleted from whaling. So one thing that's done for different whale populations, including blue whales, humpbacks, right whales, are stock assessments. And it's basically a check of like how recovered is the population, estimating growth rate, carrying capacity. So that's one thing like I'll be doing. You just it's a logistic growth model that
totally.
You estimate parameters, use Bayesian methods,
Yeah, I do know for sure.
Throw it into stand, see if it works, see if it runs, see if it converges or if it diverges, those fun things. I'm doing some look at the overlap between different populations of blue whales and their prey and seeing if there's like spatial correlation. Because when we do blue whale and other species modeling, a lot of it is several things removed where we're not modeling them based on what they eat, but we're essentially modeling them based on oceanographic conditions, bathymetry, temperature, chlorophyll. And those are essentially things that influence where prey is, and then therefore influence where blue whales or humpback whales or right whales are. But if we can like kind of remove those like several degrees of separation, well, that would be useful. And then also blue whales, it's really hard to estimate demographic parameters. So I'm trying to solve for calf survival rate using an age structure model.
Huh. Interesting. Wow. Yeah. Like half of those words I didn't understand, but I love that you're doing this work. It's really important. Seriously, it's really, really important. And like, as you said, probably can be applied to other species as well. Like maybe also terrestrial if you wanted to go that route.
And the methods and the coding aspect of everything using TMB and STAN and broad scaled like linear models, mixed models, generalized linear models, age structure models, Bayesian methods. Those are all, I don't know if anyone listening, I know that those are like different things, what these are. But I'm just listing off like some different methods that those, if you know the theory of how those models work, you can really like apply them anywhere.
Cool. That's I'm gonna like really research. This is like the pre-research I did is gonna be actually like quite small compared to the post-research I'm gonna do on all the words you're saying. Exactly.
Bayesian methods are essentially using, I think Bayesian methods are really cool, but you essentially have like priors on your parameters that you're solving for, where either it's a uninformative parameter, and I put that in quotes because any priors are information, so there's something like truly uninformative, but an uninformative parameter is one that's maybe like a really wide range, or just like the biological limits of what a parameter can take. And then you sample from that prior distribution, and then you solve to minimize negative log likelihood based on that parameter value. And then you end up with a posterior, which is a narrower range, usually looks like a normal distribution. And then that's your estimate for the parameter value.
There's so much of science classes, or also like math class, statistics. Yeah, exactly. It's like coming into my head.
My lab mate jokes that when they don't want to talk to people about what they do, they say SRE statistics.
Yeah, exactly. And then people are like, oh, like, and then don't like say anything. Yeah, like that's it. That's the end of the conversation.
But it's using, like, we have a lot of information out there, and sure, we don't necessarily have information about this exact thing we're trying to solve for, but we can still use like biological limits we know to like save some of that computational work. So then you end up with like a posterior distribution, which is then what you were solving for. So I think Bayesian analysis is cool.
This is so cool. I'm learning so much, and I really am going to go look all this up because I'm like, every word I don't understand. I understand every other word. I mean, and it's embarrassing because I feel like I have taken statistics classes, and how much have I retained? Clearly not that much. I have to ask, like, you mentioned the whaling being a factor, which is sort of like human caused. I'm assuming you can couch it as that. Like, are there other factors? Like, I mean, not to, obviously I'm going to ask about climate. Yeah. But like, I was curious just like if that is something that's affecting the population or if whaling maybe is the most, I don't know.
Yeah. So whaling like decimated.
Oh my gosh.
Whale populations globally. And one thing,
what time frame was this?
So I'm going to get the year wrong.
Okay.
But whaling stopped in the 70s.
Okay.
It's really like one of the only examples of true like global cooperation, where everyone was like, it's getting really hard to catch whales, should we do something about this? So there was an agreement to put a moratorium on commercial whaling.
Wow.
And the intention originally was to lift the moratorium, but it's been pretty much on large whales, it's illegal to catch for commercial whaling. Some countries want the moratorium lifted. I go back to it. I don't know if that'll actually happen. I hope it doesn't. But it does put studying large cetaceans in an interesting place where you're getting a lot of success stories. Like the populations are recovering because who would have thought we stopped killing them? Stop actively killing them. And the populations are recovering. But some of these populations, Antarctic blue whales, we caught and killed almost 300,000 of the Antarctic population alone, bringing the population of the Antarctic to about 300.
From how many? From
like
300?
Around 300,000 down to about 300. Our current abundance estimates, I believe, are around 3,000. So that's an improvement. But when you think about how many there used to be, it's still irreparable damage.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're getting success stories. It's the populations that I'll assess. We think they're like very close to like fully recovered, which is exciting.
That's good.
So whaling is not a factor anymore for these large cetaceans, but we still have ship strikes. We have entanglements. We have the North Atlantic right whale population. They have around 300 where wind farms and ship strikes, and there's so much shipping in that area that their population is critically endangered because they keep dying from all the noise and the traffic. That it's still, there's a lot of success in the marine mammal world because we've stopped actively killing the animals, but there are still critically endangered populations.
Wind farms, that's interesting. This is like one that's fascinating.
No, like, I don't quote me on the. I know, like they're worried about the wind farms. I think it has to do with the noise.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's the same thing with shipping noise.
Okay.
Screws with their ability to
like their
hear
communication. Oh, interesting. No, I mean, I don't think that's the only. Like, I mean, I've heard a lot of like the wind farms, like with like birds and bats, and like there's like many kind of different populations people worry about with building those. But then you also anyways,
you
that's
put it in the water, it's the
okay, that's so interesting. I hadn't heard that one. And it makes sense though, because if you're dealing obviously with whale and migration pathways, probably is like something else that's hard.
So ship strikes are the biggest like active threat to most of these populations. But then like in the background of everything is climate change, and how is that going to affect ranges, how is that going to affect prey. The most nothing I do is specifically looking at climate, but most papers, especially most recent papers, like talk about future directions or caveats of we don't know how this will change in the future with global warming and rising sea levels and lost sea ice.
Yeah.
So there's always the background of, hey, this is what we found now. Right. But this can change in the future. This can change tomorrow.
Yeah. Interesting. The context will change. And I wonder, like, are sea temperatures an issue too? Like again, is that like part of the future change? I actually don't know. It's all probably connected.
Yeah. I'm not in oceanography, so I'm not going to, I don't want to like.
As my resident oceanographer that's in front of me right now in my head.
Sea temperatures are rising, and what I can say it will do, or what I can be confident about, is that it will push populations away from the equator, like towards the poles, to try to maintain those colder temperatures or temperatures that they're used to. And you can do the same thing on land, where you can project like, okay, well, if the temperature goes up this much here, things are going to migrate north. But you can only migrate north a certain
like amount. Where else can you go?
You hit the Arctic Circle. You hit Antarctica. Yeah. Like you can't go towards the poles indefinitely.
Right. Yeah. Which is pretty scary. I mean, I saw this happen with, I mentioned I'm from Maine, like the lobster population on the East Coast is fascinating to look into. Like, moving. One
of the most, if not the most lucrative fisheries in the world.
Absolutely, I think it is. And it also there's something around the carbon intensity of shipping lobster, because you have to keep it on ice, but you can't kill it. You ship it live. That one was crazy to find out. I was like, oh, cool. My home state is contributing to this like industry.
That's the thing with the North Atlantic right whales. A lot of those fisheries up in the Northeast are very lucrative. Yeah. So it's really hard to convince people to lower fishing intensity, move fishing intensity to protect large whales that don't bring in any economic or much economic revenue. Right. Where they're money suck of like having to figure out how we conserve them, but also like they deserve to be protected.
Definitely.
But it's the money versus the conservation.
Yeah.
It's an uphill battle for everything.
Totally. No, and I think that's something that like I see throughout a lot of these conversations with like, behavior change or environmental just practices or your own personal life. Like I feel like the incentive piece is huge. Like it keeps coming back to that. Like sort of if there's fishermen in the Northeast being like, what's in it for me? Like, why should I do this? Like I'm making a bunch of money over here doing my thing in this way. Like, why should I change for this population of whales or whatever? Like, it's hard. It's really hard unless you implement. Yeah, I know there's many solutions of like policy or regulation implementation, but it is true that it's a pretty lucrative industry up there.
Yeah, even with like, this is more with an issue with seals and sea lions versus whales. But in some cases, we've like the Marine Mammal Act, like was very successful. Seals and sea lions, their populations are largely doing great. There's issues, but like their populations are depends on the individual species, but a lot of the population doing very well, so well that they're terrorizing fish like migrations.
Oh, interesting.
Or in Seattle, outside the Ballard Locks, sea lions will just hang out. And like eat the fish. And at the Bonneville Dam, there's a couple California sea lions that just sit there and wait for the fish to come through. And they've spent money like taking them back to California, and then they just come back. And you have to kill them because the fish populations are already so critically low, and the runs are so low that we can't have that extra. Like you can't have the sea lions eating all the fish,
right?
Because fish are so important for recreation, commercial fishing, like an overall sign of healthy ecosystems, like. And also like important to native communities. Like you need the fish to do well too, but the marine mammals got a lot of attention because they're charismatic.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I heard this story because we moved to, I think right on essentially like the pathway to the locks on the water in Ballard, and there was a guy, quote unquote, a huge sea lion that would like sit on, so not an actual man, a guy that we used to, I don't know, like apparently he had a name, but like he was like an infamous sea lion that had been moved down to California, and he came back. They like relocated him.
They know where to go.
Wild. And I haven't seen him in a while. I was like, Ryan, where's our dude? Like, where'd he go? But he used to sit on this like neighboring dock and just all day like lay in the sun. But I think he was also like one of those, one of these animals that are marine mammals that are like eating a ton of fish. So it's interesting, like when you kind of like when you enhance one thing, like other things are it's like the whole system is impacted.
Who would have thought it's a food web?
Exactly. Who'd have thought? Who would have known? Okay. Wow. I'm gonna check our time. Oh, look at us chatting for an hour. We didn't even notice. Okay. I'm gonna ask you 2 more questions. One sort of combines the last 2 that I shared with you, and then one is like what I ask everyone at the end. But I don't obviously we won't force anything here, but I'm really curious. Like I interview a lot of people on this podcast that are like, kind of do have these like 2 separate tracks of life of like maybe their desk job or their day job is in, climate in some way, environment in some way. They're a scientist, they're an advocate, an activist in their lives. And then they're also like a surfer, a climber, a trail runner. And I feel like my kind of like, again, theory of change or angle into this conversation was, even if someone isn't like linking their work necessarily with their like hobbies or weekend worry or passions, it still is an in. If someone is a trail runner and hears you talking about this, like my thesis is that there's going to be already this sort of common shared ground of like, oh, I know Kristina. She's like a ripper, like shredder, crusher, loves trails. Like I love trails too. I love watching her race. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that she like does this like course of study or like work on, marine mammals and ecology. I feel like in some cases there isn't this like huge overlap between the outdoor community and environmentalism, but like you have even just brought this up of like running along the trails in Washington and you're like spewing out little facts and people get to like pick them up along the way. I just was curious if like you could talk about if there is any of that overlap in your life. And again, you kind of already got into this a little bit, but just like, sure, trail running and blue whale studies seem pretty disparate, or like seem pretty distinct and disparate, and like maybe they are like very compartmentalized in your life. But how has like your environmental studies, your ecology pursuits, like kind of started to dovetail with, if at all, with anything in your professional trail running career?
Yeah, I think the marine mammal stuff is pretty separate.
Yeah.
But broadly, like, I've maintained an interest in ecology and environmental science, and obviously the constant background noise of the impending doom of climate change.
Yep.
To put it like pretty depressingly.
To put it mildly. Yep.
But like getting out in the mountains and on the trails, like I think I kind of mentioned earlier, it's really grounding. It's like seeing the world, it's seeing the coolest places in the world. And you also notice like from year to year how snow levels change, how much faster the snow is melting out this year than last year. So you do notice, I feel like you're acutely aware of what's changing, especially if it's a place you go to over and over again. And it's, while I love being out there, just to be out there, it is also like kind of a pressing reminder of like, these are the places and the things that live here are what we need to protect and deserve our protection and deserve our really hard work. I don't quite get that same tie to blue whales, simply because I don't really spend time in the water.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I know that it is all connected and it is all meaningful. I remember I had a conversation with someone I went to high school with. This was, I think, right before I started my PhD, but I was kind of giving him an overview of what I was going to be studying. And he was like, well, why does this matter? And I was like, that's a really interesting question. Because first of all, like, your research is also like pretty random and niche. Like, why does what you're doing matter? But like, I think, first of all, why should it have to like exactly matter? Like, blue whale, like, it's science. It comes from a place of curiosity and learning about the world because we want to understand it. But also when you're talking about wildlife, when you're talking about forests, when you're talking about shrublands, when you're talking about fish, when you're talking about marine mammals, like, who's gonna, like, they matter because they exist. If we're not doing it for them, and if we're not advocating for these places and these species and these ecosystems, like, no one will. So sure, like, knowing a new parameter about a population, it doesn't necessarily impact a lot of things, but it also gives us more information about a species that is important and deserves our attention and love and protection.
That's the whole, like, we need everyone with their very unique skill sets and specific focuses to like come together, I think. And I mean, I feel like that sounds very like Hallmark card, but like, I really mean it. We need the people like studying like a specific population of or species of butterfly to, you know, like, it's like you need everyone. And I'm like, the awe I have for scientists and researchers and you and folks who are in these conversations every day in like very specific species specific conversations is astounding to me, because we need those people.
And it's heartbreaking when like, people just like don't care about the world around us. And I don't know if it comes from lack of time spent outdoors growing up or in their adult life, lack of interest, lack of compassion, but how cool is this? How cool are these places? How cool are these species? Why do you not care? And I think especially currently, like, with all these lands up for sale, like, how dare you? I don't really know how else to say it, but public land, national parks, national forests, BLM land, these are all like, I think it's the best thing the US has ever done. Truly. And or like ripping that away for no good reason. And yes, that's like obviously I think on a lot of people's minds here.
Definitely.
And it's been in a lot of conversations that I've seen on Instagram in person of this pressing, like, we could lose a lot of these lands, and if they are sold off to private equity, like, we can't we can't protect any of it anymore.
You can't get it back.
Yeah.
It's gone. Yeah. I mean, I think like too, the thing you said really early on in the conversation was just sparking an interest or a connection in people, like as they pursue their hobbies, whether that is like, maybe it's on the water, maybe it's like paddling, surfing kind of thing, or if it's trail running, hiking, like just like to your point of someone saying like, why does it matter? It's kind of like, yeah, but if you don't care about this stuff, like that's dangerous too, you know? Sure, maybe not everyone's gonna like go immediately like dive into studying blue whales, which I think again, it's like we need everyone to kind of do their niche thing to like as like this like ecosystem of scientists, if you will, or ecosystem of activists and advocates. Like, yeah, not everyone's gonna like, I'm sure the people you work with, like maybe there's, I don't even know, but I'm guessing there's like a small subset of people that like work on blue whales in the world.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Correct.
And I think like we need all of that. So, you know, whether it's someone who's asking why it matters, okay, but maybe if that person, I feel like we're picking on this person a lot, but like this is a good hypothetical, right? Like if that person cares a lot about, like maybe they think that like wolves matter more. Cool, then go focus on that. Like focus on what matters to you is sort of, I think, my like message to people, if you will. And I think like, yeah, it's we need everybody, but we kind of need everybody to do something about it. Like we need everyone to take action on the thing they care about, whether that's public lands or a specific species or a scientific pursuit.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add that came up in my head was in like early environmentalism writing, so like John Muir, Aldo Leopold era, I think there was a lot of conversation around the right way to be in nature.
Yes.
And I personally take a lot of issue with that.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a right way to be in nature.
Agreed.
I mean, unless you're like defacing nature, that's the wrong way. Obviously, leave no trace.
Yeah.
First and foremost, leave no
trace.
Sure. Follow the rules.
Yeah.
But like, if you have to, I remember one of my backpacking trips in Yosemite came out of the backcountry. We were walking through a campground, and there was a family camper van. They had a TV set up because they wanted to watch the I don't remember. I think it must have been like the 2015 World Cup.
Yeah.
But they, like, it was really important to them to watch the World Cup. But here they are, also out in Yosemite, one of the greatest places in the world. Do I love that they're watching TV? Not what I would do.
Sure.
But they're there.
Yeah, they're outside.
And whatever you need to be comfortable outdoors, you don't have to go, like, sleep in the woods with no tent. Like, if you need the luxuries of a TV, of a camper, of a microwave, whatever, I don't really care. If you're getting out there in one form or another, like, great. Whatever gets you a connection to nature and to the world, I think is worth it. Yeah. And I think shaming people who aren't able to do it in the right way is really judgmental, and it's really just moving us backwards.
Absolutely.
And I think I kind of say the same thing about running, where for me, I love competing. I love running ultras. I know what I get out of it. Yes, I'm decently good at it.
Yeah.
But I don't need everyone to go and run an ultra. I know how much running brings to me and how much I love it. I want everyone to find that aspect of running for them, because I want everyone to experience like what I get out of it. And if that's your holiday 5K, awesome. If it's a 15-minute mile, if it's a 6-minute mile, I don't care. I just know what it brings to me. I want you to experience it in the way that works for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with being outdoors. You don't have to go run 40 miles in the mountains. Just go on a walk in your local park. Go take the gondola up and watch the escarpment at States. Yeah. You know, like, whatever gets you that experience and exposure to the natural world is important. And telling someone they're doing it wrong is just not the way to go about it.
I could not agree more. We could have like an entire other conversation about this topic, but I'm really grateful you brought that up. I mean, yesterday I'm like started to lead these events called Climate Strides, and I kind of like at the beginning I always say, you know, we're building an inclusive climate movement in the outdoor community. And then the next line I say is the outdoor community is not just those on the covers of magazines summiting, you know, the tallest mountains or doing the raddest stuff that's like worthy of being put on a pedestal. And then yesterday, the caveat I added was, though, because we're at TrailCon, a lot of people in this crowd have been on the cover of magazines. You know,
a lot of you guys have
it's like, actually, that's kind of a funny example. But that is, I truly mean it. Like outdoor recreation to me is like sitting on a bench looking at nature, or like being under, sitting under a tree after walking a few feet on the trail and just being outside. Like whatever that definition is, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's like, again, we could have a whole other conversation on this, but I love promoting like the way people want to get out there and the way that feels comfortable with them culturally, community wise, like seeing themselves represented outside, the access. I mean, there's like so many topics we could go into, but I fully agree with that. Like there's not one right way to do it. And we have had thinkers and writers in the past that have like really prescribed those ways. And also I would say like, sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in the community that we both occupy, like that we're both in the sort of like, these are the ways like, oh, this is like what hardcore trail running means. Like, yeah, okay, that's one avenue for getting outside, or like one avenue for getting on the trails even. Like, what does it mean to enjoy the same trails in a completely different way, to your point? So
like if you want to hike instead of run, hike. I run because I don't like hiking. Like
exactly.
When I'm hiking, I'm like, I should just be running.
Yeah.
But if you don't like running, hike.
Yep.
Go for a walk, go for a stroll.
Yeah.
I don't like,
or don't even go up, just go flat,
just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I literally feel like we could keep talking for so long, so I'm gonna ask you the last question.
We're yappers.
Also, thank you so much. We are yappers. I love it. I also thank you so much for doing this live in person, because this has been so much fun, and I love the like actual extra dynamic that it gives. But okay, I'm gonna ask this like actually a little more broadly, because you've mentioned like, okay, I don't necessarily work super in climate change specifically, but I ask everyone on the podcast, like, what is your favorite climate solution that's not your own? And I'm going to broaden it to be like, what is your favorite sort of like environmental solution or environmental impact avenue issue that you're excited about in terms of like something that's being solved, like a solution that's being presented that might not be like anything to do with blue whales, say?
Yeah.
Something else. Like, I'm curious.
Will kind of take a cop out and say a climate solution that I have worked on, which was when I worked for the Natural Climate Solutions. And I think it's a really neat idea. It obviously can't take up like, or make up for the fact that we're continuing to pollute at high levels. Sure. It won't make up for the rising population. It won't make up for like everything else we're doing. Mm-hmm. But natural climate solutions can absolutely have an impact on our climate levels and help states meet climate goals.
Yep.
Natural climate solutions are things like changed timber rotations, riparian reforestation, reduced land cover changes, other types of work like shrubland reforestation and restoration. So it's the idea of how can we take what we have and increase carbon sequestration, or slow down activities that remove our carbon stores and release them back into the world, or like how can we take what we have and improve our capacity for carbon storage
in nature.
Nature, using like the best. I think Elon Musk tweeted that he was like, I don't know when this was tweeted, but like, I will give like $1 billion to anyone who has a climate idea to pull carbon dioxide out of the air.
Like, it's like trees.
Trees. Like the nature is doing its job of maintaining climate, like as like the climate balance, and we're like screwing it up.
Yeah,
like nature can do it on its own.
Oh yeah,
and
well.
One thing that I like to bring up, this is maybe kind of dark, but like when we talk about climate change, I think it's very focused on what we're losing in the world, but also kind of like if people need to care, the earth will be fine.
Yeah,
the earth is going to be fine. Like it'll recover. Humans cannot survive the climate changes, the increasing temperature, the increasing population. We do not have the means to maintain this trajectory as a species.
Yeah.
We will be on the chopping block soon enough.
Yeah.
Like not in our lifetimes, but like humans are on the chopping block for extinction.
Yep.
The earth will recover once humans are gone.
Yeah.
But we're at risk, and I think that's often forgotten. Where you can't we have to protect people as well.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, like, we are part of the world. How can we work together in harmony?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This just came up yesterday at the panel.
Yeah,
actually.
like, we're going to be screwed.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a people issue. Yeah, this actually came up on another episode as well. Like, Jenny Abeg was like, the world's going to be fine.
Yeah,
like, the earth is going to be fine, you know?
It's been through this couple times.
Exactly. And it came up on the panel yesterday that we had at TrailCon around this topic, which was like, this is a human issue. This is a food security issue. This is a shelter safety, like what have you issue around like people and humans and communities. And like, that's actually what's at stake. And so if we can start to connect those dots for people, like, sure, it might be dark, but it's true. Like, we have to start connecting those dots, because if it's like, yeah, do you do the like carrot or the stick thing, where it's like, do you motivate people being like, look at the positive benefits that like climate work could be doing, and then you also are like, but also, by the way, we're kind of screwed if we don't do anything about this. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and thanks for explaining some of the natural climate solutions, because I feel like some of these topics, I'm always like, people are like, oh, can you explain that more? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good one to just like, you know, what is it? Is it land use change? Is it like planting more of a certain thing? Yeah. Is it kind of like sequestering carbon in nature because that's what nature does best? Maybe arguably that might be some ecologists or naturalists might be like, that's not actually true. But I think it's like one of the things that like that nature is incredible at, is sequestering carbon, which is what we're polluting the world with. So yeah. Kristina, thank you so much.
Oh my God,
this was really fun. Oh my gosh, this was so great to sit down in person.
A few miles from me, so like,
I know we could have actually done this. This is actually quite funny that we did this in Tahoe, because we live really close now to each other. But
I love it.
I love it too. Thank you so much. This was so fun.